Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we're going to be talking about Wes Anderson's The Fantastic Mr. Fox. But before that, we're going to talk about the Agnes Varda box set. And then, Season 2 of The Mandalorian so far. So, join us!
Welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Justin, and with me is the world's biggest whackback fan, Mike. How the cuss are you doing?
Oh, you old cusser, I am doing just fine. How the cuss are you?
Yeah, I'm cussing great. Couldn't be any cussing better.
Good. If this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which is a Criterion Collection focused episode that we like to do usually every other week, where we review a Criterion film that is voted on by the listeners. But before we get to the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about recent news or things that we've been watching. So if you haven't seen the movie, you could still listen for a while, and then we'll give you plenty of warning before we move into the actual main topic, which is, this week, spine number 700 in the Criterion Collection, The Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's right, and like Mike said, the Criterion Collection films we do are voted on by the listeners, so stay tuned to the end of this episode. We'll have a poll where we put out new choices, and we'll put that poll up on our Twitter at Casual Cinecast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. If you want to send us any messages about the movies we're discussing, any questions, you can send those to any of those social media accounts. You can also email them to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, you enjoy the show, you want to help other people find it and let us know that you're enjoying it, you can give us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and also subscribe so that you get the episodes automatically when they're released every week.
That goes without saying, I would hope. But yes, subscribe, please. Subscribe your friends. They'll thank you later.
That's right. When they find that mysterious podcast in their feed, they'll go, what is this? They'll listen and they'll undoubtedly fall in love.
They'll immediately be disarmed.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. News on the March. Let's do this thing.
All right, let's go.
News on the March.
Okay, Justin, so I must admit you have been watching much more than I have this week, or at least more impressive things than I have watched. So I think you should lead this conversation before we get into The Mandalorian. What do you say? What have you been up to this week?
Sure. I've actually watched quite a bit this week outside of my usual TV shows that I'm working my way through and, Mandalorian and that sort of thing and our film for the podcast. The main thing that I wanted to talk about was that I finally broke into the Agnes Varda box set that I got a few weeks ago.
And how was it?
It was, well, I struggled with it because they have the discs divided up into programs, right? So there's a program called early Varda, right? And it's her first 3 films she ever made. And then there's a program called Agnes Forever, which contains a film, the last film she ever made, which I think is a documentary about her work in 2019. And then another film she made in 2015. But the odd thing is it's divided into these programs, but the Agnes Forever one I just mentioned is program number 1. So I don't know, should I have watched... I was trying to decide if I should watch that first, since it's program 1, or should I go with the early Varda and watch her films in chronological order and just switch around throughout the discs,
The way I've always tackled directors, let's say I'll just find a film where the director really speaks to me, right? Like a Sergio Leone, right, or something like that, or someone with style, where you Sam Peckinpah type, right? Then from that one powerful film, I go back and usually kind of either tackle the big hits, right? Or in the case of Peckinpah, I just kind of started at the beginning and did chronologically. So I don't know. What did you end up doing?
I ended up going chronological because that's just how I usually, will tackle a director, especially if I'm trying to
understand them.
Through. Yeah, and go through their career, and like I want to make sure that I watch everything. Like it's kind of easy to just do that chronologically.
Yeah,
I don't miss anything.
Well, and you can also kind of follow a trajectory of sorts, right?
Right, and that's what interests me most. But I guess I just think like, well, they took the time to separate them into programs and number those programs, 1 through however many programs there are.
Yeah,
and like, did they do that for a reason? Am I not watching
something?
This box set as intended?
Yeah.
And the other slight complaint I have about it is that the discs just slip into like a section in each page of like the big box set booklet.
Oh man.
Right? They don't actually like snap into a holder.
And
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I am not a fan of them releasing these box sets that aren't the same height dimensions as a regular Blu-ray. So I don't know where the hell to put them if I were to buy them.
Yeah, I have mine on the top of my shelf, like a trophy.
Yeah, but how many of those can you collect over time before you have a bunch of just like obtuse crap on top of your shelf,
Yeah, I know. It would be a very wide box set if it were the same height.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be like really awkwardly wide, which would be funny. I don't know. But yeah, I know what you mean. I'm with you. But anyway, so those are my thoughts on the box set overall. Like I said, I ended up watching some things chronologically, and the first 2 things I watched are her first film, LaPointe Carte, which I'm pronouncing that horribly, and then the second thing she made, which is like this 25-ish minute like travel log, basically, of the French Riviera, where it's a bunch of shots and like some voiceover narration, and I don't know, it's very similar to like a modern day vlog, kind of, just without like the person making the vlog talking directly to camera or anything like that. And that one was a lot of fun to watch. It's shot in color, whereas the other 2 Varda films I've seen to this point, which are LaPointe Carte, and a long time ago I watched that before, and Cleo from 5 to 7.
Yeah.
And those are both black and white films. So this one was color and really bright and colorful and beautiful. And some of the shots were really interesting. Like the whole style of it, I found really fascinating. And it's
that's great.
Short and sweet and kind of fun.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the joy of color. Like when I first watched Pierre Lafaux, which is one of Godard's first color films, if not the first color film.
Yeah, I don't think it's his first, but
yeah, I don't think it's his first either, but it's definitely one of.
Yeah.
And the joy of color is all over the screen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's definitely the case in this, and it's not. There's not like a big narrative film. It's a little bit more, just shots of the French Riviera and her observing things in an interesting way. Like you can definitely feel her style and her opinion and voice on these things as you're looking at them, which is fun. I think she was like commissioned to do this, like a little travelogue of the French Riviera, but she definitely puts her own spin on it. And I can only imagine that like the people who did it might have been like, oh, this isn't maybe not as just like fun and informative as we wanted it to be.
Awesome. I want to see that.
But yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. I mean, it's a short, so I don't know where you can watch it other than this box set, but it's probably on like Criterion Channel or something.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever like big, well-known directors direct things that are, I don't want to say beneath them, because, if you're working directing something, you're working, right? You're a director. But it's always cool whenever you hear like, this is a music video that David Fincher got his start in, or this is like a credit card commercial that like Wes Anderson did because he, needed to buy a house or some shit, like. Oh
yeah. I like that commercial.
I know, it's great. That's what I'm saying is like, David Fincher's made some pretty amazing commercials from what I understand too, or, a bunch of famous directors have. So, I would love to see like more of that kind of stuff thrown into like box sets, for like maybe like well-known people.
Yeah, totally. That'd be great. And that's what's super cool. There's a bunch of short little things like that and documentaries that she's made that I'm really excited to see, especially after seeing this one. It gets me excited for the rest. But again, that's Du Côté de la Côte, which according to IMDb, the name is Along the Coast. But if I remember correctly, the title screen when I watched the film said Coasting Along the Coast, which I think is a cooler title.
That is a very cool title.
Yeah. But the other film I watched, LaPointe Carte, this is my second time to see that. It's black and white. It's a narrative film. It's way more what I would expect watching like an early French New Wave film.
Yeah.
But this was made in 1955 too, so it's pretty early in the French New Wave movement. And what I'll say is I watched this film for the first time probably 10, 11 years ago, maybe almost 12 at this point. And it was right before I went to film school, and I thought, okay, this was cool. Like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But watching it now, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Like, yeah, like I know what you mean. Like, it washed right over you in a sense where like you're like, it's good, but not the same experience as now, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely not. And I was getting into Criterion films. I was watching some things like some Godard films and a little bit of Fellini and some Kurosawa and that sort of thing. But I think I'd watched these really big movies, and this was maybe one of the first, smaller movies from Criterion that I watched. And I think with the other ones, there was like more grand things happening, more generally well received. And this one's a little bit more nuanced. And there's a lot to appreciate from a filmmaking perspective that there was just no way at the time that I watched it that I could have completely appreciated it. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially it being like before me going to film school, but also just having not seen that many films, like looking at this now as like her as a first time director, like I was just kind of blown away by some of the filmmaking in it. It kind of reminded me of the same feeling I got when we reviewed the Apu trilogy and watched Pather Panchali.
Ah, man, that movie is so freaking good.
Yeah, it's so good. But like that kind of watching now and looking back and knowing this is that director's first film. Like at the time, I even after watching the movie, I don't think I could have told you Agnes Varda's name, a month later. It just didn't stick with me.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, you watch, I'm trying to think, even something like The Hard Eight from P.T. Anderson, it's a very simple movie, but it's very well directed, like very well crafted movie. And then you look at his next film was Boogie Nights, for God's sakes, which is just like Scorsese could have crafted Boogie Nights. You know what I mean? Like, like it seems like such a well put together film. So it's like some people just got it, And I'm with you on the sense that like when you watch things when you're young, you're like, yeah, it's good. It's fine, But then, like, it seems like the case of, like, every classic, quote, film that I watched again within, like, the last 5 or 6 years versus when I watched it the first time when I was, like, 19 or 20. Like, the nuances and the things I just inherently understand more as an older person in a lot of these films. Sometimes it's, like, night and day. Sometimes it's, like, I might as well have not even watched it back then.
Right, yeah. Yeah. I get that feeling a lot, too. I'm just like, maybe this is my first real viewing because I can finally see it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're embarrassed at how little you picked up on the first time,
Like, yeah, I've been sleeping on this film for 10 years, thinking it was fine. Here it is.
And really, you were just
really
fine.
Good. Yeah.
It was good.
I was less than fine, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so it's a really simple film. It kind of goes back and forth between sort of documenting in a way this small fishing town, small fishing village, and their kind of struggles with government regulations and poverty and that sort of thing, coupled with a couple who has returned to this small town where the husband had grown up there, and his wife comes back, and they're having a marital crisis, basically. So the two stories don't really have anything to do with each other much. You're just kind of intercutting between the two. And, it's really interesting to see her handle like so well, especially as a first time director, like these two stories that like don't have anything to do with each other, but also at the end of the film, it doesn't feel like, well, why did these two stories go together in the same film? Why is this not like two short films? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
They don't come together in a big, like plot wise, but it works as a whole film. You know what I mean? Interesting.
Well, that sounds cool. I still, to my shame, have only seen Cleo from 5 to 7. And only then, just like I think the once.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll be getting to that one pretty quickly because I think I have one more short film I have one more short film to watch, and then the next film is Cleo from 5 to 7, I think. So I'll get there pretty quickly. So I'm excited to revisit that one.
Cool, man. Well, I'm jealous.
And
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I may check in. I don't know if it'll be every 2 films, but just every now and then as I work my way through this box set, I'll check in. But I kind of wanted to do an initial, like, I've cracked into it. I'm gonna try to knock out a couple things a week.
Yeah, and you've committed to chronological, right? Watch through.
That's right. Yes, committing to chronological.
All right. Godspeed, sir. In your journey through Agnes Varda's filmography.
I know. It's going to be a long journey, but one I'm very excited about, especially after these 2 films.
Yeah, sounds like you're off to a good start.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So that is it for that. So, Mike, what else are we talking about?
Well, since I've only been watching like just TV, man, I've just been watching TV, rewatching Die Hard. I put up some Christmas decorations, not much, but I had like a friend over, and it's not really fun to do Christmas decorations by yourself. So that night I threw on Die Hard and put up Christmas decorations, but I feel like Die Hard is so common that like it's not really worth talking about right now unless you're going to do like a full episode on it.
Yeah.
So we've both been watching The Mandalorian season 2, so we might as well, we're about midway through the season right now. Let's just kind of talk about our feelings about that because that's easy to talk about. And everyone on the internet is already talking about it anyway.
Yeah. It's hot right now, especially with everything they've been doing with the show.
Yeah. So I'm pretty well documented as being the biggest Star Wars nerd on the show, so I think everyone knows how I probably feel about it. But Justin, how have you been feeling about season 2 so far? I think we last talked about it. Episode 1 had just aired, so
yeah,
a lot's happened since then. I think episode 5 just aired, and there's 3 more left. So yeah, how you feeling so far?
I'm feeling really good. I was a little worried when I saw season 2 because I thought it was kind of on par with some of my least favorite episodes from season 1.
Wait, you mean episode 2?
Yeah, what did I say?
Season 2.
Oh yeah, episode 2. Sorry. And episode 2 of season 2 was a little just okay-ish to me.
Right.
Especially after how good episode 1 was.
Yeah, it didn't seem to immediately add on to much, and it was pretty short.
Yeah, but since then, I think the show's just been on fire and just getting better and better. And I think these last 3 episodes 3, 4, and 5, have been by far my favorite episodes of The Mandalorian altogether. And they just keep getting better as they are bringing in so much lore from other places and, getting a little bit more onto the fringes of just regular, like, cinematic Star Wars universe. Mm-hmm. That I don't know, it's getting really fun and really intriguing, and you're seeing a lot of characters you've heard of before, a name dropping characters you've heard before, and I don't know, it's feeling a lot more connected, and as it gets more connected, I think it gets a lot more fun. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I saw a post on Reddit a couple days ago, and it was I'm going to paraphrase, but it's basically saying that like this show, what it's doing is it's kind of unifying all these visions of Star Wars that have all felt kind of separate, but have all technically been considered canon, right? Like you have elements of the prequels, the original trilogy, the cartoons, the books, and now like they're bringing in or hinting at maybe possibly connecting with elements of the sequel trilogy and fleshing those things out. And so like what this show is doing is it feels like the most unified vision of Star Wars. This feels like it's like bridging the gaps between all of these things that have kind of been canon, but most people don't care about them, and making everything feel of one piece, I guess. And it's really fleshing out the universe in a way that I think Disney needed to, and in a way that I think if the sequel trilogy had tried to do a little bit, it would have been received better. But I don't know if that would have made them better movies,
Yeah. I think it's making so much of the other content feel more worthwhile to dive into,
right?
And more relevant, which is fun. It gives you a bigger reason to move beyond, the original prequel and sequel trilogies. It gives you reason to watch, the Clone Wars animated show, or I don't know if it's dropped anything from Star Wars Resistance yet, but Rebels is the other show too. Like, and then some of the books, like I think we talked about Timothy Oliphant's character from episode 1 of season 2 of Mandalorian is talked about in one of the books that I just finished reading. So it was really fun to have read that.
Right. And also, not to, I'll be vague, but yeah, like the episode that just aired, episode 5, where we see Ahsoka Tano premiere in live action, the person that she's after is very much tied into the end of Rebels. in the final bit of Rebels, because Rebels is brought in that character into the canon, canon technically, but now it seems like they're teasing live action or at least potentially, I don't, who knows? We don't really know what they're doing. They could be dropping a backdoor pilot on us right now to maybe launch a different live action series, because Disney Plus needs content right now. But I think this is the kind of content they need to do, which is like big budget, but like very small bit happens in each episode. You know what I mean? Like this very like slow paced adventure kind of storytelling, I think is the Saturday morning cartoon vibe is I think what they need to try to hold on to, and what makes Indiana Jones and Star Wars and all these Lucas properties from the 80s feel so fun and pulpy is because of this they were always supposed to be serialized in nature, these little adventures with cliffhangers and just enough questions to keep you speculating. Like I think this is where Star Wars is going to be the strongest going forward.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the season isn't over yet, but so far there are things in the season that are equally as satisfying as like anything I got in the sequel trilogy, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the best sequel trilogy moments, like I'm getting stuff like that from this, and I could easily see it being even better.
Absolutely. Okay. And so I think from here on out, I'm going to be talking spoilers for everything up to season 2, episode 5 of The Mandalorian. If you don't care, keep listening. If you don't want to know, show notes, you can skip ahead to our review of The Fantastic Mr. Fox. Okay. But yeah, so like that whole backstory of like little baby Grogu, being in the Jedi Temple, being trained by lots of Jedi masters and stuff like that. He was around during the events of the movies, or of the prequels, He
was around during Revenge of the Sith, right?
Oh, well, technically, I heard, and I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but he's around the same age as Anakin, if Anakin were still alive.
Okay. Well, I think they said he was like 50 years old in season 1. Right.
So, I think Anakin died shortly before 50. So, I mean, Baby Yoda, or Grogu now, and Anakin would have been born around the same time. Only, I guess, Grogu probably was at the Jedi Temple before Anakin was, I would assume.
Yeah.
And just kind of around the whole time. But I guess the reason we never saw him is because he's still such a little baby that he probably would have had to been trained in like a more of a one-on-one sense.
Yeah. I mean, how much training could they do? Maybe just have him around to like, have him
we don't
there.
know, because here's the thing is Ahsoka tells Mando basically like he was trained, but then once he left or was taken, he didn't even say saved from the Jedi Temple. She said taken. Once he was taken from the Jedi Temple, his memory goes dark and he started to like hide his powers as probably a method of survival. So he's not as in touch with his powers as he used to be. Mm-hmm. So even though he can't talk or do a whole lot, he may have been, they may have communicated mentally like Ahsoka was doing with him,
Yeah.
And so he may have been really force proficient, even if he wasn't like, yapping away at everybody.
Right. He can only tap into his force powers in dire circumstances, like saving Mando from a charging beast or
that's now
wanting some macaroons.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like that's now after he's been hidden away for 25 years. But before he started hiding his powers, who knows how much he could have done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's super fun. I liked Ahsoka a lot, and the action in this last episode 5, the sort of two big simultaneous showdowns that are happening at the end is super fun, and maybe my favorite so far scene in Mandalorian. The
visual language of like the Western iconography and then like the samurai duel happening like simultaneously was really awesome. And just a little sidebar, like for clarification for listeners who may be familiar with it, you do not know Ahsoka Tano from anything else, right? That was your first experience with her?
I have seen that character, I've seen the character and I've heard the name from like the cartoons. I have not seen the episodes with her, but
you know of her.
I know of the character and I know the name.
Okay.
But that's it. I don't know any of her story.
Okay. And then did you pick up on like her reference to Anakin?
I believe so. I remember thinking that she was talking about Anakin at some point.
Yeah, when she talks about how like his, Grogu's fear and all that stuff, it's not a good idea to train him because she's seen what happens.
I've seen this, what fear can do.
Yeah.
With this kind of power before. Yeah.
What'd you think of the name Grogu?
Not what I expected.
Yeah, me either.
It sounds, I don't know, Grogu. It sounds like, I don't know, more Lord of the Rings than Star Wars to me, but maybe not.
Yeah, it sounds like a really 80s name, like a really 80s fantasy character name to me.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm thinking of like small soldiers like the Gorgons.
I kept thinking of Goku.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense too. So we're all
It took
over
me a
the
long
place.
time not to say Groku.
That'd have been fun.
Yeah, but all in all, I agree with you. I'm excited that we have 3 more episodes left and can't imagine where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Next.
I'm not excited that there are only 3 episodes left at the same time.
I know, man. This show is just fun. I appreciate how the show doesn't have filler in it. Like, there's not I mean, depending on who you talk to, some people could say certain episodes are filler, but I don't agree with that. But, you know, I like how if the episode needs to be 30 minutes, it's only 30 minutes.
Right.
You know
or
what I
it
mean?
could be
Like
45.
Yeah. So, you know, they could try to meet a standard and add fluff, but I don't know. It just feels lean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. They tend to breeze by because a lot happens in them.
Yeah.
You know, within its own self-contained adventure in every episode.
Right. And, you know, like I think like season 1, like I think if you add the runtime up, I think it comes out to be like roughly like the runtime of a trilogy of movies.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like you're adding a million years of content every year that people have trouble catching up on, you know?
Yeah,
or at least so far,
it's
knock
good.
on wood. I'm sure in 5 years there's going to be so many freaking Star Wars.
I know. What do we have coming down the road? There's
Okay,
a Kenobi miniseries.
There's a
or something?
cartoon called The Bad Batch coming out next year, which takes place after Clone Wars but before Rebels, which is going to have Bo-Katan and Ahsoka in it, apparently.
Uh-huh.
Then you have the Obi-Wan series that's starting to film in March or something like that. You have this Boba Fett 3-episode miniseries that is apparently filming sometime before Mandalorian Season 3. Then you have Mandalorian Season 3. And then you also have Rogue One guy from Itu Mama Tambien.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name.
I know it. I could have... Andor. Cassian.
There it is. Cassian.
Thank you, Google. I think those are the only ones that I know of that are confirmed, but I'm sure shortly, or in some boardroom right now, they're weighing heavily the options of whether or not to greenlight an Ahsoka Tano series with Rosario Dawson, you know?
Yeah, she's a huge hit from
Huge
what
hit.
I've seen.
I think it's like the highest rated episode on IMDb or something like that is what I saw some article saying.
Oh, wow.
Big hit. I'm sure it's before long. Yeah, I mean, you don't hire Rosario Dawson to not put her in more things.
True.
Is the way I look at it, probably, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, you know, they could use something like Mandalorian as like a testing ground.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
that could work as like a spinoff to its very own series. Like, she could not pop up in The Mandalorian again, you know? Which, by the way, sidebar, we have 3 episodes left. Do you think any of the characters we've met so far this season are showing up in the last 3? Who do you want to see, and what do you think?
I think for sure Bo-Katan.
Yeah. She ties
be
in
back.
way too easily with Moff Gideon's storyline to not show up again.
Yeah. I think that's for sure. I could see Timothy Oliphant as a slight maybe.
Yeah, but he would be real hard to work in, I think.
Yeah. He'd have to like go ask him for help or something.
Right. He'd have to be like in dire straits and be like, I still have this armor. You can use it temporarily. Come on.
Yeah. I think I'm just going off of the format of the first season where the guy we met in episode 1 ends up coming back in the last episode.
Right, yeah.
I'm kind of going off of that. And then
Oh,
I
man,
think
but that means he might die, though.
True. I don't think they'll go that formula. Where they bring back the character from episode 1 and then kill him.
I imagine we'll probably see Cara Dune and Grief Karga again. Gina Carano and Carl Weathers.
Oh, right. Yeah. They're recurring already, though.
Yeah, they're already recurring, so it feels weird to only have them in 1 out of 8 episodes.
Yeah. I'm going to go on a limb and say we won't see Ahsoka again.
Yeah, she
That's my
seemed
prediction.
I was thinking we had to because Moff Gideon has a lightsaber. Who else would have a lightsaber? But she gave him a lightsaber fighting device last episode, so now we don't need her anymore.
True. I mean, they name dropped Thrawn pretty hard at the end. That like it'd be weird if he didn't pop up, and so maybe she will.
Yeah,
because of that.
If he does, it won't be this season because right now Thrawn's so tied up with like whatever's coming next for the Rebels follow-up series.
Mm-hmm.
That would mean that The Mandalorian and whatever's happening with live-action Ahsoka and whatever's happening with animation Ahsoka are all tying in a very intricate way. So I get more of the feeling that what they're doing is like possibly a backdoor limited series pilot with Rosario, and they're going to somehow try to keep Rosario's series and whatever comes next in animation. So I don't know. It's going to be weird. But
yeah.
I'm willing to bet if we see Thrawn in Mandalorian, it will not be this season or even maybe next season.
Oh, wow.
I think Gideon's the immediate bad guy. And then once Gideon is topped, if there's someone above him, it will be Thrawn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I think they're going to try to do the Game of Thrones style storytelling, which is like name drop something and then maybe don't mention it for a long time.
Okay. Yeah, having not seen Game of Thrones, I'm not familiar with that, but I understand what you mean.
You know, it's kind of like
I'm not familiar with how successful that was in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, it's very successful, which is like tease something that everyone wants to see and then throw a bunch of other interesting crap at you and then bring it back 2 or 3 years later.
There you go. It's bold.
People go nuts.
Make it 2 or 3 years.
I think it will. All right, I think I'm done talking about this show. What do you say we move on?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. So now we move into our review of Wes Anderson's The Fantastic Mr. Fox.
And so it begins.
Welcome to the fantastic world of Mr. Fox.
Woo! Should we dance?
Woo! His life is fantastic.
Pure wild animal craziness.
His wife is fantastic.
If what I think is happening, it better not be.
His neighbors, not so fantastic.
This is Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, 3 of the meanest, nastiest, ugliest farmers in his valley.
What was that?
They're digging us out.
But they're about to discover
Oh, Foxy. Is help on the way?
he's one fox
I've got an idea.
you can't out-fox.
Mole, what do you got?
I can see in the dark.
We can use that. Rabbit, I'm fast. Badger.
Demolitions expert.
What? Since when? Here, put these bandit hats on.
I don't have a bandit hat, but I modified this tube sock. We look good. Yeah.
Okay, so as always with our Criterion films, they're typically films that have been out for a while. Fantastic Mr. Fox is probably one of the newest films from Criterion that we've reviewed, but we are still not going to be doing our usual spoiler-free section up front. So this is your spoiler alert. This is your warning. So if you have not seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, you don't want it spoiled for you, pause now, go watch the film, and then come back and finish listening.
All right. So The Fantastic Mr. Fox was directed by Wes Anderson. It stars George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Bill Murray, and amongst many other regulars that you could probably guess. The IMDb synopsis says, an urbane fox cannot resist returning to his farm raiding ways and then must help his community survive the farmer's retaliation. Mm-hmm. Pretty accurate.
Yep. Nothing to add.
All right. So we chose this film, or I chose this film, and it won the poll. And the theme was movies we are thankful for, but really it was just a Thanksgiving theme. At least that's what I considered it, right? So I stand by that. After watching it recently, I think it's a great Thanksgiving film.
Yeah. There's a feast in it.
Yeah, well,
a Thanksgiving-ish feast.
Yeah, there's a bunch of food, right? First of all, the color palette is spot on. I actually saw this film in theaters on Thanksgiving Day by myself. Well, that's not true. I saw it with this guy from film school. But anyway.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw it in theaters as well. And then I think when I came back, because it was on break, right?
Yeah.
I came back, we went and saw it again with some of our other film school friends, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So I know I saw it twice in theaters.
And this probably, I think, is probably my top 4 Wes Anderson films, personally speaking.
Yeah?
I don't know. Where does this film rank for you in Wes Anderson's oeuvre?
I really should have thought about this beforehand, because undoubtedly this would sort of come up, I think. I would say it's pretty safely in the top half, I think. I like it more than Moonrise Kingdom, Darjeeling, Isle of Dogs, and probably Rushmore, but maybe not.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. I think I like it more than Rushmore, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just so creative and freaking unique and cool.
It's a film I could almost watch without even like listening to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I could just have it on while like listening to something else and just like a painting or something, just sit there and appreciate all of the detail and the amount of work that's going into these shots, knowing that it's stop motion, right?
Yeah, it's insane. And it employs like classic Hollywood techniques, like, you know, the old school King Kong, the original King Kong. During that stop motion animation, you could see the fur move as like people were messing with the puppet. So like their fingers would brush up against the fur. So like between frames, the fur just kind of moves around in this really unnatural way. Wes Anderson just sort of leaned into that, instead of trying to hide it. It's almost part of the charm, and it's a lot of things are quainter than they need to be. Right. This whole movie is quainter than it needs to be. Like you have cotton balls being used for smoke and champagne fizz, and just the creativity involved with the most mundane effects. I just find this movie extremely charming. I don't know. Yeah,
I think that's the moment I remember sort of falling in love with this film when I saw it the first time was the cotton candy as smoke. Or not cotton candy, cotton balls.
Right, yeah.
Like whenever that first popped up, I just found it so fun and cool to look at and creative and charming, like you said, that I was just like, that the film won me over completely. And it was, it was going to have to tank pretty hard to make me not like it from there.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's something I didn't really realize before, but having watched, Moonrise Kingdom and Isle of Dogs and Grand Budapest Hotel, I think I've only seen Isle of Dogs once, but I've seen those other movies multiple times, I believe, since I've seen The Fantastic Mr. Fox. And, you can see the influence of this film throughout the movies he's made since then. Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest, obviously Isle of Dogs. That's pretty a given. But,
yeah,
he has segments in those films that feel like cartoons where he implements miniatures or cartoonish backdrops that, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe existed in his movies quite to that extent before this. I think of Moonrise Kingdom. I think of the whole section where Bruce Willis, grabs the kids on the roof and it switches to like that really cartoonish stop motion kind of vibe, and then, in Grand Budapest, you have miniatures. The hotel is actually built on a miniature. You have the whole skiing section.
Right,
that's all stop motion animation, It seems like, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I believe he did stop motion animation in Life Aquatic. So I guess he's always kind of flirted with this medium.
True. I think it's a little more pronounced after this, though. Like it's a little bit more leaned into, Life Aquatic, he definitely had the little fish creatures, right?
The fish creatures and the shark. But it was pretty moderate.
Yeah. And this is like whole shots that feel and look the same as Fantastic Mr. Fox, tucked into live action films, right?
Right. Yeah,
which is
exactly.
A little different.
Yeah. So I just feel like this is kind of a turning point in his career or his aesthetic and becoming like peak Wes Anderson,
Yeah. Do you think that the precision that goes into making this film has made him more precise with his live action stuff? Because I do think there's a Wes Anderson post Fantastic Mr. Fox that's like insanely precise, even compared to his previous films, Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, Rushmore,
right,
and Bottle Rocket. Those films do have a little bit more rawness to them in comparison to something like Grand Budapest.
I could feel that. Yeah, it seems like his movies since then, he has more control over every element of the frame, like every bit of the environment. Like he'll build an elaborate stage versus go out onto the ocean again, or is what it seems like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. What I do think is actually pretty cool is how this film, even though it's a different medium than his other films, not different medium, but different. Yeah, I guess it's a different medium is the right word, right? Animation medium?
Yeah. The medium being, dolls and tiny props and
still
not
film.
people.
Yeah. But I like how it still feels like a Wes Anderson film. Like this feels like it comes after The Life Aquatic, right? Like remember the sectional, going through the ship. You have that in the sewers in this film.
Yeah.
Even down to the yellow font. He didn't even change that, But what I think is actually maybe different about this film versus his other ones is even though it feels like a Wes Anderson film, I think the emotional heart of this movie is easier for me to get into touch with than despite all the, Anderson's quirks and all the things that make him him. Sometimes that can keep me at a distance from his films.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, I feel like with the stop motion animation and the color scheme and the cast being on fire and George Clooney's performance just kind of getting it, and maybe the source material being too pure, that even Wes Anderson was able to get into touch with it. But I feel like the heart of this movie is more accessible, at least to me, the emotional heartbeat of it all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think as much as I enjoy his films, I can't say that any of them move me on a deep emotional level. Like, they're more entertaining and fun to watch.
I agree and I don't. I think Royal Tenenbaums has moments that really move me.
Yeah. That might be the closest, I think, which is why that's always been one of my favorites of his too. Because I think that one does come closest.
Yeah. I think Grand Budapest, Royal Tenenbaums, this one, and Life Aquatic are the ones that I see myself getting emotional in at places. But I feel like this one is the one that I think can cut into the emotions of the audience easiest.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, my point where I was going was that I don't get very emotional during any of his other films, but this one is probably the closest one I get to like getting a little bit choked up at certain points, even if it's not from like a sad place.
Yeah.
You know, getting that sort of like happy sort of choked up at times.
Well, I think that's interesting because I think that has to do with the idea that, yeah, we have antagonists, but they're not really that scary and they're not really that evil. You know, really, it's Mr. Fox is his own antagonist of the story, which is nice because I think especially for a kid's film, if any kids actually like this film, the main journey is Mr. Fox realizing that he really, truly needs to change. Otherwise, it's his actions that are bringing upon all this terribleness. You know what I mean? It's not the humans just being evil for evil's sake. They were robbed, so they're just trying to get rid of a pest.
Right.
It's really his actions that put him and everyone he loves in danger.
Yeah, and I guess it's pretty questionable whether or not he learns that in the end. Is it questionable?
I think he does, and I have evidence that I can cite to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me think here. Okay, Mr. Fox is basically dealing with almost the exact same issue as his son. He wants to be perceived a certain way by other people, right? Like he says that he has this thing where he wants everyone to think he's quote unquote fantastic, right? If they're not perplexed and awed and amazed by him, he doesn't feel good about himself, and he talks to his wife in the scene, and she's like, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you lie?" And he's like, "Because I'm a wild animal." And this is how he sees himself. This is how he wants people to see him. He wants people to see him as this clever fox that he's not a family man. He's the fantastic Mr. Fox. He's more than a family man. And he tries to convince this. Even his wife says, "Yeah, we're just wild animals." But when he finally learns his lesson, whenever Christopherson is in danger, and he realized that his son was trying to prove the same thing to him that he's trying to prove to everyone else, that he's a certain thing that he's not. He realizes he's not a wild animal. That's what the whole scene about the wolf is all about. That's a truly wild animal. It doesn't even speak any form of the 4 or 5 languages that Mr. Fox tries to speak at it.
Yeah.
It's a truly wild animal. It can only connect with like a fist pump, you know what I mean? And then it goes on its way. And Mr. Fox admires it and lets it go. Right? That's him letting go. He's not a wild animal anymore. He's a family man. And that's what he needs to understand. And that's his arc, is that he's going from thinking he was a wild animal to truly realizing he's not. He's a sophisticated, smart, intelligent father who needs to be more present. He needs to let that wild side go. Hence the wolf scene.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you're saying, especially I think that goes into him wanting to buy the big tree house, right? Mm-hmm. And he's a little insecure as being a newspaper man, because later on in the film, he's like, "If any of you read my article," which I doubt it. He's, I think a little insecure.
I don't know.
About his
I tend
job
to doubt
as
it.
Well. Yeah, yeah. In the end of the movie, he takes them up to a grocery store, right, where they just steal food again. So I guess that's where my question of, is that the same as what he was doing before? How is that not just going to lead to another issue?
It seems like more of a measured, less risky approach to things.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely less dogs and probably people with guns ready to shoot you immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's dark. There's no one there. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like he's always going to be a little bit of a mischievous guy, but I think it's a compromise is sort of the thing. Like, the family's involved in it. He's not sneaking around behind their backs anymore. He's not, getting shot at and poisoning beagles and antagonizing, vengeful farmers. I mean, yeah, he's still stealing, but I look at it as he learned a lesson, and there's a little bit of there's some growth there in the end, and he's still approaching this more as like a family man versus looking at himself as sort of trapped in the family, I think, at the beginning of the movie, right?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of breaking free, right? Or wanting to break free from his routine when he starts stealing initially.
Or that he feels that, like, this is not what he truly is. Like, he's living below what he should be doing, or he has a different purpose in life or a higher calling. Yeah. And that the family seems to be more of like, yeah, I'm doing this, but really I'm also this other thing, that I got to express and work that muscle out, But really, I think what that boils down to is he was being selfish.
Yeah, I think he's being selfish. I think it is a part of him, too. I think there's truth that he needs to scratch that itch in some manner, and maybe this ending grocery store is, the best of both worlds in a way, or some sort of compromise.
Right, and I think including the son, including the wife, in it. And that way it's not blatantly lying to them and getting them in danger that they didn't anticipate is really the key factor in all of that.
Yeah, and I think to the point of, he wants to be perceived as fantastic. I wonder, well, I guess him buying the house, the scene shortly after, his wife, Florence? No, that's not her that's not her name. Why am I forgetting her name?
I don't know, just Mrs. Fox?
Mrs. Fox, yeah. She has a name, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But Mrs. Fox asks him, you've got the house. Are you happy now? And he's like,
Oh, yeah. Do you still feel poor?
Yeah. Do you still feel poor? Yeah.
He's like, less so.
Less so. Yeah. So there's something in that I think is like, it is about outward appearances, wanting other people, but I think there's an inward thing that he needs to satisfy himself, right?
That's true. Yeah. I think the inward want is for the outward perception of him to be this really successful, suave guy, and I think he feels best achieving that whenever he's incorporating all of his cunning fox capabilities, right? Which he's a hunter, he's good at outsmarting people, he likes to make a plan. So I think, yeah, there's the outward want of success, and then also the really feeling like you're successful whenever you've achieved those things through, being what he considers the fantastic Mr. Fox, I guess, which is like a really good
being
thief.
Being good at something.
Yeah.
Doing
what he's best at.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the difference between him and his kid too, for me, is like the kid wants to be that, but isn't. Mr. Fox is actually really charming and charismatic, and for the most part, good at thieving, even if he can't always tell where traps are going to land.
Right.
Whereas not Christopherson, Ash, he's bad at sports. He's not very athletic. He gets angry. He's weird, or he's different, as they say.
Different hand wave.
Yeah, hand waves don't come across on the podcast, but but I think him and his Ash's struggle with his dad, and just was struggling with who he is throughout the movie, is the thing that I really connect with and actually moves me the most about the film. And sometimes it's like it's feeling for him, feeling sorry for him a little bit, for being picked on or whatever, and being awkward around the girl that he likes. But there's this moment when Christopherson first comes and he is angry, so he puts Christopherson's cot under the table.
Yeah.
And eventually, he doesn't want to let Christopherson sleep anywhere else, so Christopherson goes under the table and starts crying, and then Ash notices it, and he comes down off his bunk bed and like turns on the train and just kind of sits there. And he doesn't say anything to him, but it's just kind of this inviting, sweet sort of moment. And that's one of like my favorite scenes in the movie, because it's just so, it's very complex because he doesn't like him, but it's tender at the same time. Like I like that sort of like contradictory character thing. Like he's deep down, he's different than like the anger on the outside.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like he has his insecurities, but also he's not like so cruel that he's going to punch down. Right.
Right.
Like the kid's crying and he's not heartless. He understands. He's a good guy. He's just insecure and he's dealing with those like confusing emotions of being like, he knows Christopherson's a good dude, but also Christopherson's handsome and better at everything and fuck that guy, you know?
Yeah, true. Speaking of being better at him than stuff, I really love the whack bat scene, and I always have.
Yeah.
I just think it's super funny, this how complex the game is.
And then like at the end, he's like, divide that by 9, please.
Yeah. like why in any sport would like whatever happens then end up needing to be divided by 9?
Yeah, why would you make that a stupid rule?
Yeah. That's super funny. And a great cameo from Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't have felt complete without Owen Wilson in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I want to mention, just as always with Wes Anderson, this is actually our first Wes Anderson film to do.
Wait, is it really? No, we did Isle of Dogs.
Oh, that's true. I was thinking from a Criterion standpoint, but
that's
I forgot
true. From a Criterion standpoint, that is correct.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I forget about that movie. So whoops, that's on me. But I did want to talk about just like the use of music and his use of music in general, and particularly like pop music. I think he's just really successful at it.
Yeah, I really love all the uses of Beach Boys in this.
Yeah, there's a Beach Boys and some like really old, like vintage sort of songs, like the Davy Crockett song that are like they're playing on the little transistor radio, and it's songs that sound like they'd be on the transistor radio. Right.
Yeah, like old AM radio style songs.
Yeah, but I love that. It's almost like, I mean, the soundtracks, the pop music soundtracks is like, you know, to be a little cliche, but like it's another character in the film. Essentially, it's for me. It's moments that, and this is in all of his films, but definitely this one too. Moments where I'm looking forward to the scene with the Beach Boys song again, right? With like heroes and villains.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love the song at the end, the Let Her Dance song that plays in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good song. Yeah.
And one other thing, I love Willem Dafoe's performance as the Rat.
Oh, dude, Willem Dafoe is such a versatile actor.
He is. And the soundtrack, the score during those scenes, this sort of like almost like Spanish guitar and snapping and so like almost like flamenco type sort of music. It's really cool.
I like how wacky his character is. Like, you're getting a little long in the tooth yourself, Fox.
And he's like really into Mrs. Fox.
Yeah.
Like the town tart.
Yeah. And he like assaults her at one point.
Yeah. And I love his death. He's like the boy is in a crate on top of a box in the attic, and he's like, would you have told me if I hadn't killed you first? Never.
Yeah, never. Yeah. Like this
really
weird,
great.
stupid honor that he's got that like the audience just isn't really privy to.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's a really like fleshed out and memorable character for a character that shows up in 2 scenes, right?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite little gags in the movie is whenever he's giving all like the pep talk and he's giving all the animals like Latin names, and he's like, what's your specialty? And he's like, demolitions expert. And he's like, what? Since when?
Yeah. I love that he's like the possum Kylie. He doesn't know the Latin name for. He's like, I don't know. They probably didn't have possums in Rome.
Yeah, he's like, I doubt they even had possums in Rome. It's good stuff.
This is really good. One of the other touches I love too, from a good character standpoint, it's little and small, but I love Mrs. Fox painting the lightning landscapes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That like, and she graduated to tornadoes later.
Yep. Yeah, the little evolution into tornadoes. But even like when she's painting the landscape in the sewer, which to kind of keep their plan going, she can't help but put the little lightning bolts.
Yeah. Did you notice the little? It's like a beautiful mural for like their plan, and then he's like, "All right, put an X here," and you see like her little hesitation before putting the yellow X on it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess maybe she didn't paint it for the plan specifically. I think he just. Fantastic Mr. Foxed his way into
I always thought that she did, and then like she was just so good she had hesitation like marking it for like the plan.
Right.
Like X marks the spot, and here's where we're gonna go, dotted line over here kind of thing. Like she just didn't want to fuck it up. That's what I took it as.
Yeah, that's fair. But I would like Any of those paintings I think would be super cool. I would buy one and put it on my wall.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, it's beautiful. Also, favorite looking scene in the whole movie, the waterfall scene where they're talking on the bridge, like in the sewer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they did that. It's just beautiful.
I don't either. I imagine it's some sort of green screen. Maybe they composited
Surely.
together.
Yeah, but it works. Whatever it is, it's effective, and I like it.
Yeah, I love the scene where they go into after they're digging and they kind of go off to the room to talk Mr. and Mrs. Fox privately again. They go off into that. It's like a little cave and it's full of like diamonds or something.
Yeah, on the other side of this mineral deposit. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they're super sparkly behind them. I think it's really cool. And I mean, that's more than anything to me, like the most impressive thing about this movie is just the detail and the inventiveness with stop motion that really makes it feel like no other stop motion film that I've seen.
Oh, and there's one scene every time I watch the movie, I'm like, is this a real kitchen? Like when they come out of whenever Christopherson and Ash come out the drain.
Right.
And they like are going to go after like the ginger snaps, whatever. Like there's like the shot when it actually like you see like before they enter the frame, like you just see like a low angle of the kitchen, and it's a bunch of like miniature stuff recreated to look like a real kitchen, and it just this feeling of surrealness when watching it. It's just it's just bizarre every time I watch it.
Yeah, and I love all the food looks really good.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing during this
cookies.
This time I was like, this is a perfect Thanksgiving film because the food is so lovingly made in this movie.
Mm-hmm. A little
it
cookies,
reminds me,
the little apples.
Do you remember that scene in Isle of Dogs whenever the dude is preparing like the box of sushi?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. That was so fun to watch. Just like the meticulous stop motion animation of someone putting together food and preparing food. Wes Anderson has tapped into something that I never knew I loved.
Yeah. And it's not stop motion, but the scene in Grand Budapest where they're like the treats are being delivered to the prison.
Yeah.
And they're like cutting through them. And there's something really satisfying about the way that he shoots food.
Yeah, he should film commercials for restaurants. I feel like he would be really good at it.
I think he would be. It reminded me, what you're talking about in Isle of Dogs reminds me of, have you ever seen I think it's like a YouTube channel or an Instagram account or something that's like where they make the tiny versions of food for hamsters?
No.
Look it up. It's cute. I don't think it's quite as like well shot as Wes Anderson would do it, but they make little tiny like burritos or little tiny other things for the little hamsters can eat.
That's awesome.
But they'll put all the ingredients, of like a burrito, just real tiny.
I'm sure the hamster appreciates it.
Probably. Hamster's eating good. Or maybe it's different hamsters every time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's called. You just Google tiny food hamster.
I'm sure it won't be hard to find with that kind of description.
No. Yeah, cool. But okay, so now I am tapped out on Fantastic Mr. Fox.
All right, so I guess this concludes our review of the Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think it's a delightful, charming family movie, even if kids don't understand what's going on. I think they'll probably appreciate looking at it.
Yeah, I can't imagine not being captivated by it as a kid.
Yeah.
Just
or
visually.
anyone just watching this movie, and at least, even if you don't care about the plot or the performances or any of that nonsense, just look at the freaking thing. It's cool. It's a cool movie.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so I think now it's time to choose the contenders for our next Casually Criterion poll to be reviewed in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. I think next week is a regular current film, and then the week after Criterion.
All right, Justin, what is our theme for this poll?
This theme, with it being the holidays coming up, and by the time that next Criterion episode comes out, we'll be pretty close to Christmas, pretty close to the new year, and 2020 has been a crazy year. And with 2021 around the corner, there's, I think, like hope and maybe a feeling of like some uplifting things right around the corner with the new year.
Knock on wood.
So our theme will be uplifting Criterion films.
There we go. Which, as I did research for this episode, I found is actually much rarer than you would think. There's not as many uplifting or happy or feel-good Criterion films when you Google those terms as you would think. Or maybe that's not a surprise to many people. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are, tinged with some sadness.
Yeah,
here
that's
and there,
true.
Right? There's some depressing stuff mixed in throughout, right? Or
Yeah.
they're not if you want something purely uplifting, difficult.
Agreed. So, Justin, I think I want you to go first, man.
Okay, sure. I'll go first. It's in my nature for uplifting films to tend to lean towards comedies.
It is.
And those are the films I love to watch when I need to be in like a better mood. So
they are.
This film is super fun. It's a film I've seen a couple of times. And it's, again, not one I appreciated as much the first time I watched it, but the second and third time I watched it, it just blew me away at how good it was. And that is Some Like It Hot.
Ah, okay. Yeah, this came up in every list that I came across for uplifting Criterion films, and I almost chose it, but I felt like, I feel like someone else would choose it. And what? Chris isn't here, but I feel like it was a good chance someone might choose it, and I was right.
Yeah, you were right. I think this film's really fun, and I have to give credit to our history of cinema teacher in film school for making me view this film in a way I hadn't before when we watched it in that class. And he pointed out that Tony Curtis is doing a Cary Grant impression. Yeah. Throughout most of the movie, and watching it through that lens made me enjoy the film even more than I already was enjoying it. So anybody who's listening now and is going to watch Some Like It Hot, maybe that'll up your enjoyment too.
Maybe, if you know who Cary Grant is. But if you don't, have I got the movie for you? Because the film that I would like to choose, I wasn't going to until you mentioned that just then, and it inspired me.
Yay. Well, I already love it, whatever you're going to say.
Yeah. So this is a film that has actually been in the running before, but has never won. And this is a Howard Hawks film called His Girl Friday.
Yes. I thought that might be what you'd choose. Yeah,
which is one of the few Criterion films that I think is just happy through and through. Every little bit of this film I love. It's quick-witted. The dialogue is great. Cary Grant is just so funny. Irene Dunne, I believe is how you say it, is really funny. It's just, what a script. What a script. Yeah. What a wonderful, timeless, fun, quirky screwball comedy. And I don't know. It's just, how could you watch it and not feel a little uplifted? That's what I'm throwing in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this would make a great double feature, this pair, because you could watch His Girl Friday first and then appreciate Some Like It Hot more.
Yeah, exactly. So they complemented one another. I had to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did you have any other recommendations, in case you have something on things that you almost picked?
I was gonna possibly go with City Lights.
Yep.
Chaplin.
City Lights and His Girl Friday were both ones I considered. A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles.
Yep.
One seemed like a little fun romp. It Happened One Night, another screwball comedy that thinks.
Yep. Sullivan's really Travels would have been a good one, but we've already reviewed that.
That's true. I think that one delves a little bit too much in bummer territory for a while.
Yeah,
when he goes to visit the homeless people.
Maybe, but I feel like the end more than makes up for it, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I also thought about one of my favorite comedies in the collection, Unfaithfully Yours, with Rex Harrison. But that film is also kind of dark and about
that one's weird. That one's got a little biting edge to it.
Yeah, it's a little too biting to be purely uplifting. So I'll have to save it for another time.
Another theme.
Yeah. Cool. Well, with those choices done, which just a reminder, my choice was Some Like It Hot. Mike's was His Girl Friday. That poll will be up on our Twitter account. But with that, Mike, I think we are done with this episode, huh?
I believe so, you old cuss.
Thank you. Makes me feel good. You haven't called me that in years.
No.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening, listener. Thanks as always to Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch. And then, Mike, thank you for talking Fantastic Mr. Fox with me, and thank you for choosing it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a fantastic conversation. And stay tuned to this channel because the next episode we put out will be David Fincher's Mank, which is a film I am greatly looking forward to. It's about the making of Citizen Kane. If you want to dive into that maybe a little bit and prepare for Mank, Justin and friend of the show, Matt Ward, actually put out a pretty awesome episode on that 2 weeks ago.
That's right. Maybe 3 weeks ago.
I don't remember. Yeah, 3 weeks ago now. That's true, but 2 episodes ago.
We got thrown off because we took Thanksgiving off.
I know. But anyway, there you go. Stay tuned to this channel, guys. Have a wonderful, happy holiday season. If you don't listen to this by the time that rolls around, And be safe, everyone.
We'll see you later.
Bye.